Tag TV brings you daily news bulletin from India. Breaking news and views from India.
You're watching South Asia Newsline, and here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Friday, the 12th of September. India-EU reaffirm commitment to early FTA conclusion. Calm returns to Nepal as ex-Chief Justice set to take on interim PM role. And UN calls for lifting of workplace ban on Afghan female aid workers. And now for all the details. As New Delhi hosts an EU delegation, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said the two sides have reaffirmed commitment to the early conclusion of the ongoing free trade agreement negotiations. Taking to X, Goyal said that a balanced and mutually beneficial FTA will unlock new opportunities. European Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security Maros Sefcovic and EU Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Christoph Hansen are on a two-day visit to India, where they will lead the negotiations on the free trade agreement. The European Union Free Trade Association's Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement with India is expected to be implemented later this year, once all parties complete their ratification processes. This visit comes amid tensions between India and the US over 50% tariffs imposed by Washington, citing India's purchase of Russian oil. And Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, appeared calm on Friday following days of intense anti-corruption protests, which led to the ouster of former PM Oli. Some Gen Z residents expressed hope of a brighter future with the new interim government set to be formed.
After experiencing days of intense protests against corruption and social media that witnessed deaths of at least 51 people this week and the ouster of former PM KP Sharma Ali, Nepal's capital Kathmandu appeared calm on Friday. Soldiers continued patrolling the quiet streets of the city as charred vehicles and debris lined various landmarks. Backed by Gen Z protest leaders, Nepal's former Chief Justice, Sushila Karki, is set to be appointed as interim prime minister, multiple media reports suggested. Gen Z activists have called the move to appoint Karki as truly commendable.
अहिलेको परिस्थितिले समाधान गर्नको लागि चाहिँ जुन प्रधान सेनापति अनि हाम्रो चाहिँ राष्ट्रपति प्रधान सेनापति राष्ट्रपति र पूर्व प्रधान न्यायाधीश सुशीला कार्की बीच जुन एउटा सम्झौता भएर चाहिँ सुशीला कार्कीलाई अन्तरिम सरकारको प्रधानमन्त्री बनाउने घोषणा गरिएको छ यो चाहिँ एकदम सराहनीय छ.
Meanwhile, trade resumed at India-Nepal border on Friday after the Himalayan nation started to show signs of normalcy. Hundreds of trucks loaded with goods were stranded on roads at the border, affecting trade and loss for traders of both the nations due to protests led by the country's Gen Z. At least 25 Nepali tankers entered India to get oil as Nepal faces shortage of petrol across fuel stations. Wedged between India and China, Nepal has grappled with political and economic instability since the abolition of its monarchy in 2008. While a lack of jobs drives millions to seek work in other countries and send money home.
Moving on. In Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, angry youth staged a protest recently against negligence by Pakistan to provide relief and restore connectivity in the aftermath of floods. Their cries reflected years of indifference. We have a report.
In Gilgit-Baltistan, locals staged a protest outside Gilgit Press Club recently, decrying broken promises as floods cut off Yasin, Fandar, and nearby villages. Roads lie buried, medicines are not arriving, and transport has collapsed, leaving families stranded. Youth and drivers warned their agitation will intensify until relief and road access are restored.
गुप्स तहसील फंडर तहसील यासीन तहसील इंतहाई मुतासिर है इस वक्त. पब्लिक बीमार है, मेडिसिन वहाँ पे टाइम पे नहीं पहुँच रही है, पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट डिस्टर्ब है, हमारे ड्राइवर हजरात बेरोज़गार हो रहे हैं और जितने भी जो ना सप्लाई खुराक नहीं है, अवदियात नहीं है, लोग मुतासिर है. और इंतज़ामिया बेहिस इंतज़ामिया ने झूठ बोल के कहा कि हमने रोड खोला है. कोई रोड नहीं खोला है, एक जो है ना ड्रामा रचाया हुआ है. हम ये मुतालिबा कर रहे हैं चीफ सेक्रेटरी से एफसीने के जर्नल से कि फील फॉर जो है ना मलबा को हटाए और हमारा पुराना रोड बहाल करे। और ये जो है ना यासीन, भूपेश और फंडर के अवाम इस एहतिजाज हम इसलिए रिकॉर्ड करा रहे कि ये फील फॉर रोड को ओपन करेंगे, नहीं करने की सूरत में हम KKH पे धरना दे देंगे।
Frustrated youth accused authorities of corruption and neglect, warning that the crisis could spread beyond Gilgit if action is delayed. In Geyser, the protests capture the desperation of PGB, roads blocked, essentials scarce, and patients running thin.
आज 15 दिन है, 15 दिन यह रोड ब्लॉक होकर उधर 100 घराना मुतासिर हुए, 100 घराना सैलाब में गए हैं। हम सैलाब से बगैर मुतासिरीन हो गए क्योंकि खुराक नहीं है, तेल नहीं है, बीमार के लिए मसले है। तो इसलिए हम हुकूमत को दरखास्त करते हैं, आज 15 दिन वो जिस जगह में सैलाब आया उधर 2 डोजर चलाता है, सिर्फ 2 डोजर चलाता है। आगे 9 किलोमीटर रास्ता नहीं है, ताकि ऊपर से आप काम करें, नीचे से काम करें, चाहे वो एक हफ्ता में हो, 1 महीना में हो। हम नहीं कहते कि आप हुकूमत फटाफट हम 1 घंटा बना कर दे दे, ये भी नहीं है, लेकिन काम नहीं करते। हुकूमत किधर सोई हुई है?
And the United Nations has urged the Taliban to lift restrictions on Afghan women working for the UN, warning that aid for earthquake victims and other vulnerable Afghans is at risk. Taliban security forces are stopping local female UN staff from entering offices and compounds. The Taliban has imposed more and more restrictions on women's employment since coming to power in 2021. It has restricted them from jobs, education and movement. But earlier, UN women staff were allowed to work under special arrangements. The Taliban requires women to travel with a male guardian, limiting aid access. Meanwhile, the UN's migration agency said that urgent funding is needed to ramp up life-saving aid for families following powerful earthquakes that recently struck eastern Afghanistan. The International Organization for Migration is appealing for $16.8 million to provide emergency shelter and health care for 134,000 people. Afghanistan is struggling to cope with the aftermath of an earthquake in late August that has killed more than 2,200 people, while millions of Afghan refugees have also returned from Pakistan and Iran, and there is a severe drought in the north. And Bangladesh is increasing power imports from India and output from fuel oil-fired power plants to meet rising electricity demand amid gas shortages and coal plant maintenance issues. Dhaka's power imports, mainly from India's Adani Power's coal-fired plant, rose 70% in the first 7 months of 2025, covering much of the demand surge, reports have suggested. Natural gas until 2020 accounted for about 2/3 of Bangladesh's power demand and is boosting power imports to cut costs due to infrastructure constraints. Industry officials said gas is being diverted for fertilizer, making imports and fuel oil more cost-effective. Dhaka's imports accounted for 15.4% of power in January to July 2025, up from 9.5%, and fuel oil's share rose from 12.6% from 11.9%, mainly to avoid power blackouts. And 8 Indian fishermen from India's Andhra Pradesh and Yanam of Puducherry have been released by a Sri Lankan court and handed over to Indian authorities after their fishing vessel drifted across the international maritime boundary line. The Indian High Commission in Sri Lanka posted on X to confirm the development. Reports suggest the Sri Lankan Navy had arrested them on 3rd of September while they were sailing off the Kanyakumari coast in Tamil Nadu. Sri Lankan authorities issued their release letters on Thursday after verifying documents confirming no evidence of illegal fishing activities. Following completion of formalities, the fishermen and their boat will be handed over to Indian naval authorities within the coming week, an official said. Due to faulty GPS navigation, the Indian fishing boat had allegedly entered Sri Lankan waters. The prolonged dispute over fishing rights has been a source of tension between India and Sri Lanka for many years as they share an expansive oceanic border without any perceptible demarcation. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time next week. Have a great weekend. Good night.
Tag TV brings you daily news bulletin from India. Breaking news and views from India.